Welcome to the Unorthodox Film Podcast, where we discuss movies that meet specific genres, topics, or scenarios, and we recommend movies that we enjoy in hopes that we introduce our listeners to movies that they haven't seen or heard of. With our guests, we discuss movies that we have seen before and engage in conversation based on our memory and recollection of our enjoyment of these titles. At the end of each episode, we roll a dice and select one of the recommended titles to watch together. We will then discuss that film on our next episode with fresh eyes and determine whether the film holds up, as well as explore the film in a more detailed and critical discussion. I am Bradford Clark, and with me is my co-host, Joseph Quick.
What up, y'all?
Tonight, our guest is Cody McAvey. Thank you. I had it before we recorded, and then he is the
himself. I love him for it.
He is the director of photography of the currently in production horror feature, The Evil 1%. And last week on our show, we made recommendations with Gianluca Petrazzi for futuristic films and randomly selected director Terry Gilliam's 12 Monkeys from 1995. So today we will be discussing that and then going into Cody's choice of movies this evening, Chamber Pieces. So we will be discussing Chamber Pieces. So again,
movies filmed in a single location.
The open to our episode, we are going to be talking about 12 Monkeys, and unfortunately, there's just no way for us to talk about this without spoilers. So if you did not watch 12 Monkeys in preparation for our episode this evening, that's okay. I would pause and probably go watch it, or if you're on the road, skip ahead about 20-25 minutes where we pick up our conversation about Chamber Pieces.
Yeah, because we will be spoiling shit. This movie's amazing, and I'm going to talk about how much I love so many nooks and crannies of this beautiful masterpiece, Terry Gilliam.
So before we get into talking about the movie, first, hello, Cody. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, man. I'm delighted to have you here. We were in a real pinch because we've been working and haven't been able to schedule, and you came in from New York City?
Yep, that's right. New York, born and raised.
We were blessed to have a rain-out day. Production never sees it as a blessing, but it gives us an opportunity to take this unforeseen day off to have this discussion, and it seems like it worked out perfectly because before we watched the movie, you made the statement that you've never seen 12 Monkeys. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So this is going to be your very first reactions to seeing 12 Monkeys. So to get us started, 12 Monkeys is from 1995, and it is a bonkers view of the future. It makes a statement in the beginning that in 1996, 50 million people are going to die from a virus. And
5 billion
are going to die from a virus. And we pick up with our lead, Bruce Willis, playing James Cole in the future. By the math and his age, it's probably somewhere around 2040, 2045 or whatever.
But I can see that. I've never really fully speculated that because they definitely don't mention
I had more time to today.
Yeah. And it occurred to me as well, but I didn't fully speculate it because it doesn't matter what age he is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But and they just don't say what the... But it is a future movie. That's my point.
The movie, it is in the future, but the movie opens up, and it is 1995, mind you, that in 1997, 5 billion people will die. Right? And then it says this is something that was said by somebody in 1990. Correct. Right, that's the opening little title card. Which was so popular back then.
So our main character, just to quickly get the plot out, our main character is a prisoner in this future where everyone lives underground. The earth up above has been taken over by God's creatures, the animals, and it looks like it's perpetually snowing, or we were just in a winter time. That wasn't really stated either.
A biological virus. Biowarfare.
Yeah, the animals took back the kingdom.
Particular scientists gets spread and
so the
underground.
Plot is set in motion where he is offered a pardon for his crimes of being insolent and violent and a few other pretty low crimes. I mean, without specifics.
Yeah, and really.
And he goes to the he goes to the past.
Or is that just society?
Yeah, so he goes to the past. We'll talk about that. He goes to the past and is tasked with trying to resolve this virus getting out. That's the plot. Now we can dump into details.
Okay.
I know you've been biting at the bit to tear everything apart. I'm just trying to give you the fucking
recommendation.
two-liner summary real quick, so that we're all caught up. So now, Joe, why don't you start us out?
Podcast.
Start us out, Joe.
Don't act like you're the beginner seat. No, I'm just kidding. No. So 12 Monkeys is just an amazing film. Terry Gilliam is so tactile with his stories. He's just what I wouldn't give to be on that art department. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because of it's probably hell, you know, but I would love it. But the imagery is just so sharp, so stark, and just like it thrusts you into whatever emotion he wants you to feel in that scene. You know what I mean? Even the few scenes in this movie that are warm, it's undeniable, right? But it's not very much. It's very cold and dystopian film that's supposed to take you from your comfortable life right now and throw you into like, this is happening.
Yeah.
And I mean, it doesn't touch on climate change, but it's not far off if you know what I mean? And it's all about biological warfare, really. But the way he gets, because it's so cerebral, it's so psychological, right? Like the way that he messes with you, and like everything is foreshadowed like 3 or 4 times, but it's so subtle and it's done so well that you almost don't notice the foreshadowing being so blatant.
Yeah. Because
it's done so artfully, right? And because even the doctor says in the movie, like, James, that woman wasn't me. She became me because of what we're going through, which, psychiatrically speaking, is a valid point, but it wasn't true. Like, although while watching the movie, you don't see her face until the time he says that.
They kind of bleed things going on.
Yeah,
so
they change the angle to make sure you're seeing.
Let's bring this conversation to some more
hair and
specific stuff. Cody, let's start with you. What's your first reaction with seeing this for the first time?
I thought it was pretty cool. I've never seen a movie quite like it, actually. The time travel stuff was done super well. And I gotta say, I've never seen Bruce Willis and Brad Pitt act like that before.
Right.
Which was so refreshing. Like, they're both so different than they usually are in every other movie.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, that was the coolest part, in my opinion. I mean, besides the camera work was sick and the production design was so good too. And the directing. But just the 2 performances by them was like super cool to see.
Yeah.
You know?
It definitely was. And
yeah.
I know Brad Pitt got a lot of credit for his acting in that, but I feel like because Bruce Willis was more established back then, he didn't get as big of a spotlight on his wild performance. But I gotta say, watching it again today, and I've seen this movie 100 times, but wow, Bruce Willis was like fucking amazing. The way
I agree.
Like the moods he captured with just his eyes in some of those
there
scenes.
was a lot of pressure on him.
180, like as a child to a destroyed middle-aged man and back to a child again, just because of the radio messages he didn't understand. Just beautiful.
Being able to
beautiful acting.
Emote in his face was extraordinary, because he was definitely put in some situations where a lesser actor could have definitely failed, and we would have lost the pertinence and the poignancy of those scenes.
And you really see like his versatility as an actor, because and no hate on Bruce Willis, I loved him as an actor, I always have, but in those action roles that he's most well known for, you don't really get a lot of the emoting. Right. It's always that, can you be
and he's known for quips.
He's holding that stern face is hard.
He's known for quips and one-liners. He's always got like an antic to him.
But he usually plays Bruce Willis. Like, you know Bruce Willis.
And this is a Terry Gilliam film. This is not a Bruce Willis film.
Right.
And Bruce Willis has even been known to say, if I'm starring in it, it's a Bruce Willis film.
Yeah.
But this was not the case. Everybody was on Terry Gilliam's page for this.
Very true. Yeah.
To that point, there's that one scene that's on for like maybe half a second, that one image. And I owned the special edition DVD back in the day, and I'm a sucker for the behind the scenes stuff. And listened to Terry Gilliam talk about how they took a whole filming day waiting for this hamster to cooperate, because it loved running in its wheel, but it wouldn't do it when all the devices were on. Like everything else that was moving and going, all the noises, the camera rolling and everything. Like, but when people were talking and there was a hustle and bustle, it was the quiet with the mechanical noises. For some reason, shut the gerbil down.
Huh.
And they
finally got
one
it.
shot. Yeah. It took all day.
So leading up to 12 Monkeys, he had just come off. So the same year, Die Hard with a Vengeance was released. So that's how we know him, right? And that's the third one. So he's had a whole franchise going with that.
That was the one with Sam Jackson.
Yeah. So he
North
was
had come
huge.
out. Yeah, exactly. North had come out. He was the narrator in that. Pulp Fiction was probably the biggest thing. That was also 94. And then he did, previous to that was A Color of Night, Striking Distance. So it's like he has these
the peak of his career,
and Last Boy Scout. So these are all things where it's like, you know, the being present, being a badass was his role. And yet here he comes on and subverts that. And like you were saying,
did so well
with Brad Pitt's rise with Legends of the Fall, and I would say seven partially, but I was going to say he really grew into that
cool world, which
cute boy, handsome Brad Pitt that we knew going on. But the closest he'd ever done to that role of Jeffrey Goins in 12 Monkeys, previous to that was probably Floyd from True Romance, right?
Right,
Floyd on the couch.
Which he's amazing,
dude,
but it is a tiny
It's a tiny
role.
role, right?
The movie would not be the same. But
No, it wouldn't.
And
that's everyone remembers him from that.
Previous to 12 Monkeys, I don't think we had a chance to really see him explore like how unhinged he can be.
And he was,
because even Cool World, that was what, 90, 91? That was before 12 Monkeys.
It was
yeah.
before 12
And it was
Monkeys.
super cool,
young,
it was suave, it was, he was a pretty face. And in this one, like everything about the tics he created for the character, the gesticulation that he was able to get and motivate, just everything. He was unpredictable at any moment. If I remember
right, he spent 6 weeks. I think it could have been 6 months, but I don't want to overstep it. I think it was 6 weeks observing people with certain disabilities that he was supposed to be emulating.
Wow.
And,
interesting.
That is.
He deep delved. He took it very seriously.
Yeah.
And then the movie had a bunch of other very well known and strong actors with some bit parts. Madeline Stowe as his psychologist.
Psychiatrist.
Psychiatrist was amazing. But
amazing.
then,
and her little speech about how in the 90s, like, we are the new religion. We say who's crazy and who's not, like the priests used to do.
Right.
It's, just beautiful. There's so many beautiful moments like that in this movie.
Christopher Plummer in a very short, very understated role for someone so huge.
So well casted, too.
The whole movie is just brilliantly casted. So many people. What was, who was one of the... Not the 12 Monkeys, but one of his activist
Yeah, we looked him up. That was Matt Ross. Matt Ross from Silicon Valley and American Psycho. And a very young performance.
Young, but he was so good in it. Like every single one of those actors, whatever role they were in, I mean, it was palpable.
Great. Yeah.
So
you felt that world.
Let's talk about the story and the storytelling, because I think there are a few different elements of filmmaking that were utilized pretty well. So, Cody, with this being your first time seeing it, how well were you able to follow the story, and what did you think about the things as they unfolded?
I'd say I enjoyed the filmmaking a little bit more than the story itself, even though the story was very cool. And I was trying to remember, because we were talking about earlier that it's based on a French film from years ago.
Le Jetty.
And I was trying to remember that because I saw that maybe like 10 years ago when I was in film school. And I was trying to remember the similarities between that and maybe with this movie, and I feel like it's not similar whatsoever.
Okay, I was going to ask you that.
I think the story is similar as with the time traveling.
Okay.
And the ending is also the same. The ending, I remember the ending being the airport.
So Terry Gilliam took the narrative of the time travel and the ending. So, because the whole movie is based around that scene in the airport.
Yeah.
Which is which is what your film that you're
exactly
is the narrative of this horrific
and that's what
scene.
I found cool, because I expected you to kind of say that about the plot, because I believe that this is one of those movies where when you watch it the first time you're not going to get everything, because the more you watch it the more you see the hints that were placed and the small little foreshadowing that was given to you. And
I'm
that's what
telling
I
you,
think is so.
every time I'm pleased.
Yeah,
I
and
find
that's what I
something
find
new.
Yeah,
is
do you
so
learn something new?
120 or
okay.
some watches,
Yeah,
and I'm still pleased with something new.
so
it
every
seems like
time.
one of those. Yeah, I would like to watch it again for sure.
The pacing of when they introduce some new material to you, especially hinging on that dream sequence of him as a boy, and it built, and you keep seeing it, and you're like, I don't understand. Or even the minute placement of the boy trapped in the well. At first, you can pass by it.
Yeah.
Then they keep bringing it up, and as a
even
first time
in
viewer,
the
you can be like, why am I
dialogue
being
of,
bothered
security
by this?
guards and
Right,
people
right.
just passing by, you get hints of this boy in
Yes,
the well.
but you need
Right.
How
you find
prevalent
out
it was.
like that was key for her to believing
Yes.
what he had going on. Now,
Right.
as far as learning new things, the thing that I took away from it this time, and this may be because there were less things I was hoping to pay attention to because I've seen it before, or maybe it's because of my age and I'm more
Just aware of certain
aware
things.
of things. But the fact that he's seen what he saw in the dream really alludes to the fact that by the end of the movie, he didn't really resolve anything. And that last moment of that scientist on the plane leaves me wondering, okay, is she pretending to be in insurance, or was she in insurance and she was key in everything,
Okay.
and now she's just behind the scenes?
I got you on this. Now, this may be some Joe canon, which
Okay,
our
so this-
audience is familiar with. It may be what I thought, but again, I've studied this movie. Like, I love this movie. I have since it came out. Like, as
All
a
right,
child,
that's
I
still
loved it.
Joe Cannon, though.
Yeah, it's still Joe Cannon. Yes, but it's like what I've thought from what Terry Gilliam didn't reveal, because he reveals a lot. If you can get to hear the commentary and the behind the scenes stuff in the old Criterion Collection DVD, it's amazing. But it's so good. So my canon for that is, okay, so she actually was in insurance. And you know how you can tell she's actually younger. There's more wrinkles on her face. Her hair's a faded color.
Okay.
Like, it's subtle.
Yeah,
And
that's what I was looking
love about
for.
Terry. It's there.
'Cause you really, like-
But it takes some watches to really look for it. It does.
One of the
Like,
things that is used, I
you have to be
noticed,
thinking about it to notice it.
there was a lot of important tricks that were employed. We talked a lot about, while we were watching it, the presence of very slight Dutch angles. Something else I noticed was there's a lot of handheld, and
Yeah,
Terry
emotional
Gilliam shoots
tension,
with
right.
wider, like fisheye lenses sometimes in his handheld, so it gives you a disorienting feel out in the outer edges of the frame. But lighting was something that I noticed a lot. Whenever you
so
saw
amazing.
Bruce Willis or the Doctor,
I'd be lying
everything was.
if I didn't say
I'm gonna-
this was one of the inspirations for me to go, like, why I love lighting so much, this movie.
When you're seeing, there'll be time when I pause. There'll be time for you to talk. When the Bruce Willis is seen or the psychiatrist is seen, you see that it's lit from above, but the scientists and a lot of the future was lit from below, to where the shadows were casted across their face, and a lot of details of their personality were lost.
Right.
Yes.
And so when you see her in that reveal at the end like that, you haven't really seen her in that kind of lighting.
Right.
So it was hard for me to determine how much older she may or may not, or how much younger she
No,
was.
and that makes
Yeah.
very good sense. Yeah, like, they were definitely hiding that. Like, it's all, it's very for a more modern viewer, it's very Christopher Nolan, right? Like,
Yeah.
the way it's Terry Gilliam all the way, but like Christopher Nolan implies the same effect a lot, and like using lighting to showcase mystery.
Yeah. It's almost like noir style. lighting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very, like, and I love
Yeah.
this, and this is something I've taken into my career in lighting that I love, is like heavy in the contrast, way in the shadows.
Yeah.
Because yes, you need the light. The shadows are just important.
Oh,
Absolutely.
absolutely. And you mentioned earlier the art department. The set decking in that movie was remarkable, and it's everywhere. Like, it was opulent,
Production sounds
because
so cool.
when you're in the future, Terry Gilliam has always had this real steampunk influence to the way he does his
much,
machines and his technology, and the mix of the new and the old
Shit, you could
and the
call him
weird.
the Godfather of steampunk, because he was
Right.
doing that shit before steampunk was a thing.
That's true.
Even steampunk's been around.
It's a good word to describe it. I never thought about describing his movies as that, but like,
But just as an example,
it really is.
the rat that you're talking about, was in a fish tank running a wheel that was it was part of the machinery. It wasn't an animal lab. So somewhere in there, that rat was important to what was happening.
Integral. That's why it took 12 hours, because in his mind, he's like, it doesn't work without that.
Right.
Like, the whole thing doesn't work without this.
And again, back to lighting with the mouse. Like, the mouse is almost like blown out.
Just a shadow.
Like you can barely see it, but you can. It's enough.
Very thick, hazy glass.
So it's cool.
I thought the use of the composition choices were really good at alienating us as a viewer, alienating James Cole as a character. Like when he's in the future, there's a lot of, like, you never see close-ups of the scientists. You always get a wide shot of them. I think the closest you ever got to them. Yes. Unless the closest you ever got to any of the others were like a 3-shot. So it was still relatively medium wide.
Yeah. And they're like super heavy, chauvinistically opinionated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very 90s.
Whenever
cliche.
you're following James, like I said before, a lot of it is handheld, a lot of it is Dutch, even just slightly, just a couple degrees with the Dutch. And then, when you're in the quote unquote real world with the doctor, that's when you see a lot of the jib shots or the steady shots or things that were supplanted in reality and how it looked and how it felt.
Yeah.
Did you guys notice that or any other takeaways as far as the use of the camera?
Yeah, I mean, as far as lighting too, like you were saying, like whenever the scenes between Bruce Willis and Madeline Stowe, like Bruce Willis is pretty harshly lit and she's like so softly lit.
Angelically lit.
Yeah. She's like, yeah, exactly.
They make a very valid. Like,
she's so glamorous and everything.
Yes, they make it's an obvious, like, purposeful choice. Like, it's definitely intentful for them to. You see him in this like animalistic way, and you see her in this savior sort of.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I mean, I know how to, through lighting, you do that by softening the light, by adding more diffusion and stuff like that. So you have the same light source, and we've done this before, where you have diffusion over half of it, and you're lighting overhead, and it's just the way they did it, and like then of course the positioning of the actors' faces and everything.
So that was the next thing I was going to get into, because there was a lot of that.
Terry Gilliam is so specific and so beautiful, but he does it so well that it's not in your face.
Right.
It's
just nothing was in your face.
Because it's every scene, everything's subtle, but every scene has that poignancy, that beauty, that attention to detail.
Yeah. In the I noticed it more in the asylum area of the film, the first act, than later on. But when we were still getting accustomed to our, us as viewers came from the future, and now we're with James and we're getting acquainted with, the real world, which we know, but we need to know this world. And James was all doped up. There was a lot of shots where it was either him or Brad Pitt, because he was doing the tour around, with them full in an ECU of 50% of the frame, and then kind of like a split diopter shot in the back where there was whole things happening in the back. And he did a really good job of framing that character up front so we can see their eyes, their facial reaction, and their interpretation of what else is going on. But the amount of chaos that was able to happen in the frame behind it with only about 50% of the framing left was remarkable.
Yeah, in rewatches you can focus on like 18 different portions of the screen and see something new every time.
Yeah.
Whether it be just the reactions on the emotion of the actor's face on the close-up and different avenues of how they're reacting on their face, or as you said in the background, where just seamless, beautiful background actors just keeping that world alive. Like not a step was missed. It was gorgeous.
Yeah, I mean he loves his wide shots too.
Yes.
For the most part. Like you said, there are a few like really good close-ups and zooms and things like that, but like
it's still
for
the most part,
it's so wide
right here.
And that's what makes the frame so interesting. There's so much going on in it. Like you said, you'll have a 2-second frame and you don't even get to see 50% of what's happening in it. You know? It's like you really have to see the detail.
Super famous in that. Like the mouse story, the rat story doesn't surprise me because every one of his sets he's had some. I mean, he famously wasn't able to finish Man of La Mancha. You know, so
that's right.
Oh, the Brothers Grimm, the very opening scene with like geese walking through with the wagon. The geese were afraid of the donkey in the wagon. And it took him like 4 hours to get these geese to go the way he wanted them to walk.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, he's famous for it.
Yeah.
There's one of these for every one of his movies.
So wild.
I'm
rightfully so.
Glad you mentioned his use of wides because I definitely notice that as well. And I do believe that, a lot of the stuff in the future obviously had to be backlot stuff. Then there was the stuff in the New York area or the Philadelphia or Boston or wherever they were going. So, there was some on-location stuff, but he was still, even on the stage, able to, like, the beginning, the opening sequence, when we first see James, I think he was going through, like, the underground tunnels or something like that. They were still enclosed,
when
but
you
he
first
shot
see him,
it.
he's in this cage.
But
they pull him out, and they put him in the suit. And then
he's walking through. So
tunnels,
you get these wides of these huge pipes and these corridors, and he's in the background of the shot. So he's smaller, but those are obviously set pieces, right? To shoot that, which means they're relatively small, but he's still able to shoot them in a way that was grandiose, that really gave you this feeling that this underground living that they're in is huge. That a society can function. And then he takes that outside, and I think he uses that to give us space and to give us room, because then when we get into the asylum or we get into the 12 Monkeys office, everything gets so enclosed. Or when he's sitting in front of the scientists, everything is always so enclosed. What I noticed that the room that he was in when he was being spoken to or talked down upon or whatever with the scientists, in contrast to whenever he was in front of the psychological panel, there was so much more room. That room was huge. It was a small desk with the 4 or 5 of them sitting there.
Yeah, but the ceilings were still low and tight.
But the room was huge. The light was coming in.
When he was in the present or past, right? Past, and anytime the past, he was like the room. Everything was tighter. Mm-hmm. But anything in the present was huge.
Yeah,
with the scientists and even when they were locked in cages, it was this vast space.
It was, but his space was small. So
his space was small, but he could see everything. There were no actual walls; it was cages,
and you could tell it was large. But you felt
every room, every space in the present had like huge ceilings.
It did, but he still
walls.
made it feel claustrophobic. Whereas in the past,
lighting,
in 1990, when he was in front of the panel board,
small spaces that felt
it was
open.
Huge.
Yeah.
It was a big room. Light was just splashing in. There was a serious lack of set decoration. It was just an empty, banal, sterile room.
I love this air.
Yeah,
such clean air.
The use of music was really cool. So you have a soundtrack and you have a score, and the score is very relaxing and soft until there's ever a moment when the 12 Monkeys is being shown upon, that it gets a little zany, a little wild, and it's a huge contrast to the soft, slow
of the
symphonic
rest of the
music.
movie.
Yeah,
and it really is. You're like, oh, mischief. Like, you know that, okay, this is something fun's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And then the score, he uses really old music. Fats Domino was used. Louis Armstrong was used, which is, even the past for 1990, but it was still so simple and so...
Some Tom Waits in there.
That when James got to hear it, it was angelic. And I think those are those things, like when we're talking about this being a movie about the future, those are the statements that this movie was making, where through the events of what had happened,
there's no more
art. There's no more art. There's no more. He doesn't understand TV. He doesn't understand music.
He says, I love the music of the 19th century.
We don't have this.
We don't have this. We don't have anything like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of those cool little details that I find as a viewer allows us to really start to internalize and ask the questions. Because you can just sit there and watch about this fictitious world that gets destroyed, or you can self-internalize and be like, what would we be missing? What would we lose out on what is really at stake.
Okay, so now you're coming back because I wasn't done with my Joe canon, but I also didn't want to.
Yeah,
we're
fair
still
enough.
going down the movie, and you had something to say. So you're bringing it back around. So the full addition to my canon is yes, it was her as an insurance, and she becomes a scientist, right? But also, James Colt is the whole pin, right? He's the singularity. Everything revolves around him. You notice that anything, like all these phone calls that they're making, try to leave this voicemail, he's aware of everything until he makes a phone call at the airport amidst the scene that the movie revolves around. And then his neighbor from the cages, who we've seen a couple times
Jose.
in the movie, who's always looking for him, Jose, comes back and gives him the gun. Right? Because of the phone call he made, because now they know who it is. And he literally asks Jose, okay, great, but who am I supposed to shoot? In walks Doctor and tells him who's he's supposed to shoot. Like, it just unfolded so beautifully. And it's this whole, so James Colt is the center of this universe.
Everything that
If
happens
he'd have
happens
died
because
as
of
a
him.
child, there would be no human race.
Correct. Because they even get to the point where
he's the reason
idea
for
of
the
it comes from a misunderstanding between him and his Brad.
Is the catalyst for everything. If they didn't send him back in time, there would be no disease. If there was no disease, they wouldn't have sent him back in time. It's the perfect paradox. It's so beautifully done too, because no matter how much you watch it, it all makes sense.
Yeah.
Because the world is just stuck in this paradoxical loop. It can't get out. The Pembroke Steps, it can't get out.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
It's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah, the ending is I mean, really, it couldn't have ended any other way. Like, you had to know that he wasn't going to save it, because I guess the things that we know about time travel, right, is he wouldn't have then existed and wouldn't have been able to travel back in time, because everything would have just had that been resolved, right? But she knows him, and that's the one detail that escapes me, because she only knows him because she saw him as a child, which is in her future.
So
he never visits her in her past.
This is where the movie is complete to me. That exact moment, right? Because
the picture.
She's acknowledging.
She sees him in the picture.
So she knows that he's actually a time traveler. But then she says she recognizes him in
Like
that disguise.
Yeah.
Because the astral plane, the psychic plane, all this is real, right? So if they're stuck in this Pembroke step loop of reality and time, she remembers him because she's finally aligned her energies with the inevitable. She's entwined with the energy of the universe and fate, right? So now she's, I've done this a million times. There you are.
Yeah, that's
It's
interesting.
really, it's cerebral.
That's
It's
interesting.
deep. Dude.
I
Again,
think
Joe Cannon.
It's very complex.
Yeah, I think having his picture pinned on her wall and her just passing by it in years of research for her book and not really putting that.
Right, if you want to take it into the therapy booth, it's arguable. It's arguable.
It is.
Right, but
I mean, it's a work of
again,
fiction. It could be
there's-
what you're saying, too.
That's what I love about this movie, because you could have an actual scientific discussion about this, because it brings up proper points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And every movie we love to talk about has this kind of common where it really is a societal commentary. Satire, sure.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I
dystopian,
do
sure,
think just because
but-
of the ending that it's Terry Gilliam's way of taking us on a ride and then damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Right, and the eminence of it comes out in 95 and opens with 1997, 5 billion people will die.
Yeah.
And just takes you on this ride of not knowing and being relieved every time you know as another question's raised. He's just so good at that. And this movie is the pinnacle of that. For me, I love it.
Yeah. Cody, do you have any other thoughts? Anything that came to mind?
Yeah, I really liked it.
Would you recommend it?
I would totally. Yeah. It's a weird, different movie, and it was cool seeing the actors that are in it do it. You know, it was and the camera work was out of control. So good. Attention to detail, amazing.
Some of them slow push dollies.
Oh my god!
Oh, dude!
Even
and
when
the dolly
camera,
zooms, did you guys catch all the very subtle dolly
so
zooms?
good. There's
There were
so many.
so many of them.
And the crane shots when the camera came out of the the plants.
Oh,
Do you know what I'm talking about? When they're in the elitist like conference they're having, like it's so cool.
It's beautiful.
It's unbelievable.
The dinner at the mansion.
Yeah, the dinner at the mansion. Yeah,
You cannot have that kind of synergy without the proper planning of proper professionals taking their job
100%.
serious. No matter what they're working on, they're doing their 100%, and it showed.
Yeah. No, absolutely. This is one that, and it's been a while since I've seen it, and so there was a lot I gathered from it this time, and I'm so glad that I did, because while I remember a lot of, the major plot points and things like that, being able to watch it again with fresh eyes and really explore the details, and I don't think I was as skilled in the eye the last time I watched it, so there's a lot more I gathered from that. I found the editing to be remarkably weird. But worked incredibly.
Right.
Absolutely.
It was really good. See, I did the opposite. I watched too much of the visuals of it, which I was enjoying so much.
Yeah,
that now I kind of want to go back, watch it again, pick up the stuff that you're talking about.
All the plot points, all the really nuanced story,
so much nuance. Yeah, like it's complex.
He's as good at the nuance in technologically in the film as he is in the story of the film, and that's what I love about him.
Absolutely,
nothing goes miss with him because he puts the right people in the right seats, and then he trusts them with it. But he also doesn't say yes until he's 100% happy.
And
it can cost money, but I mean, proof's in the pudding. Really, I'd give if I had the money, I'd give it to him.
He is a visionary.
He is. 100%.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you love sci-fi, this is a movie for you. It's so good in all aspects. Like it ties up every little knot and with a little bow on it. It's pretty. It's
exciting. It's grimy.
Yeah,
while being
dirty.
beautiful.
It is dirty. Traumatic too. Like you could feel the trauma in him. You know.
And he's filthy and disgusting a lot of the movie, and like. At points, I imagine it wasn't for me because it wasn't the first time I saw it, but I can see that you can feel that on yourself.
Like literally, at one point, he grabs the psychiatrist's face when she's like tied up on the bed. And he pulls his finger off, and you see grime. Across her. You see the streak of. You're just like, whoa.
He's like drooling a lot too. You see his ass a whole bunch.
Yeah, she literally, the doctor literally says you gave this man enough. What was it called? Not trazodone, but
trazepam.
Oh, what was it called?
Thorazine. Yeah,
enough Thorazine to put down a horse.
Yeah.
And the cop goes, and look at him there, raring to go. He's like rocking back and forth, just drool pouring.
And he tries to escape on it too.
Oh yeah, he was. There was no quitting him.
No,
that's why the scientist chose me. I have a strong mind.
Yeah, I remember things.
Oh, I love this.
He doesn't mess around.
I don't have anything else I want to add. Joe, anything else further you want?
I have one thing.
Do it.
My favorite line, probably of any movie ever. Is that the police out there? I'm an innocent victim in here. I was attacked by this psychotic hooker and a fucking crazy dentist. Best pimp line ever.
It's great. It's great.
That guy got his ass kicked.
I love that too. That was so crazy. This pimp just comes in.
And he just fucking gorilla stomps him like he does everybody. But then when he drags him into the bathroom, he doesn't actually hurt the pimp. He just throws him in the tub and cuts his own fucking teeth out.
Yeah.
So the guy's just like, what? What are you doing over there? What? That's fucking nuts. Don't kill me. I got kids. Like, there's so many funny, just really funny and amazing things, and just it's also traumatic and like emotional.
It is.
It's a beautiful movie. It covers everything. We laughed.
It does.
All but cried, really.
Right.
And if I wasn't so enthralled by the technicalities, I probably would have cried. I have cried watching that movie once, but going through different parts of life, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the sign of a good movie. All the emotions.
So let's talk about chamber pieces, unless you got
I said that was the last.
Alrighty. Chamber pieces. By definition, according to wonderfulcinema.com,
I'll tell you what's wonderful.
a chamber piece is a film involving a small number of characters interacting over a short period of time in a limited environment. Additional characters and environments may exist as support to the main action, but would be few in number and appear only briefly. Chamber piece is also known as a chamber film or chamber drama, sometimes a bottle piece. But basically, the idea is most of the plot takes place in a single location. We kind of talked openly amongst ourselves earlier that for the movie to really be considered for our discussion today, just to try and keep things from crossing the line too much, we like that single location or the isolated location to happen somewhere by the end of the first act. Right,
yeah,
guys?
within the first act.
Within the first act. And then, B stories and things like that happen outside are necessary, but
cannot
be
overpower an act of...
correct. Are we all in agreement on that?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. So we're going to make our list of 12 here. Our recommendations are going to alternate. We're going to each take turns discussing what we think about the recommendation made. After we each take a turn, we are going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and finish off the list. So, Cody, generally we have our guest start. Are you okay with giving us our first recommendation
100%.
Today?
So my first, and I'd say it's probably the most obvious one, I gotta go with Reservoir Dogs.
All right.
Is possibly my all-time favorite movie.
Amazing film, yeah.
Incredible.
It's on my list, but I was going to say for honorable mentions.
It is.
Because it's...
Oh, okay. It's not one of your mains.
Well, because it's obvious to me.
It's so obvious. That's why I felt bad, but I feel like I have to start it off.
I knew one of you would take it.
Yeah.
So I didn't put like, I got the list of like 12 or 15, and I put 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I stopped.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So tell us about Reservoir Dogs. I think all of us here at the table know, but in case our listeners have heard this so many times and they know it's a Tarantino thing, but why watch it?
Why watch it? Well, Reservoir Dogs is cool in my opinion because it is a diamond heist movie where you never see the diamond heist.
Right.
Which is so cool. You see the beginning, you see the planning of it. Once in a while, like that's where the movie isn't a single location movie,
right,
where we bounce back. Yeah, exactly. Where we do the flashbacks, the Tarantino flashbacks of finding out how each member got involved with the job. Mm-hmm. Then the rest of the movie is the single location, which is the aftermath of this botched robbery where they're trying to figure out
like a
who the rat is. Yes. In this like warehouse.
Yeah, it's a warehouse.
Yeah, it's like this like weird.
It's got a hearse and some.
Sure, it's a warehouse.
It's like a mortuary. Yeah, it was like a mortuary or something.
Yeah. Mortuary warehouse.
The characters do not know each other's names, so the viewers get a little bit of insight into them when we do their.
Mr. Shit.
I just didn't want to talk over you quoting the movie, so when you're done.
I'm done.
The characters don't know the names of each other, but we do because we see the flashbacks and things like that. And it really, very much like 12 Monkeys, it pieces together things for you a little bit at a time.
Yep.
So as you brought together and then you brought into like the final, as these characters show up, as you get in their present day, like you know how threatening they are, or you know who the mole is, and all of that rotating thing that really keeps the drama afloat because everything's already happened. Like you said, what would normally be the most exciting thing in other movies is ancillary to this whole story, right. And the trouble is amongst them. Yeah,
it's all about like how they relate without knowing who each other is, or like the one scene where the one guy, Mr. Blonde, is actually the one thief that knows the people putting the heist on that is hired.
Right, and don't give too many details away.
No spoilers, but ultimately, it totally threw me off.
How's it feel?
It feels great, honestly. I could take it.
Yeah, I was gonna throw some spoilers too. I'm glad you told me not to.
No, I mean,
light ones. Talk about it. Talk about the
I don't
plot.
think this.
Okay.
Oh, I remember I was gonna go, but like,
So we shouldn't say who the rat is
But like,
ever.
Right.
but like Quentin Tarantino goes to the point of like naming characters and creating a universe that he stays inside, even if it's not the same movie.
Right.
So like, Mr. Blonde is Vince Vega.
Yeah.
Or Vic Vega.
Vic Vega,
But
Vince Vega's brother. Yep.
But in the next movie, it is Vincent Vega.
I
and
always
their
wanted.
brothers,
I
and they-
always wanted the Vega brothers movie. That
Right.
Me
never
too.
happened.
Like,
Yeah, he
never
should have
happened.
totally made that.
But he
Would've been
talks a
awesome.
lot.
Lives up here,
He
the
talks
joke
a lot. Yeah,
Right.
he's the film critic's already off. He's no longer doing that. Now he's talking Star Trek or
Right.
some other crazy stuff. But yeah, so that was the one. I just didn't want any of the special story stuff because you've seen it enough times that you forget what the first time you saw it was important and what was a reveal and what was exciting.
Yeah.
But the tension comes from the fact that none of these motherfuckers who have worked together know each other. So none of them can trust each other. They're all trying to open up. They're all, as you do, trying to figure out who's your friend and who's you're not.
Right.
And they're criminals. You can't trust what anybody says.
Well, and the one guy that's supposed to be the most reliable ends up being the most crazy and ends up being the proving point of why the snitch, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Like, yeah, it's beautifully done. It really is.
It is a remarkable demonstration of Quentin Tarantino's dialogue writing.
Yeah, dialogue-driven plot, rather than action-driven plot. Because really the most exciting part, like the heist, you say, isn't there, but the closest you get to it is the flee of it, right? There's a little bit of the chase, a little bit of the bang, shoot 'em up. But
It's all aftermath.
it's all aftermath
all
or
aftermath.
leading up to, like,
And that's kind of the most important
The
part
commode
is
story.
the aftermath.
Yeah.
Right. Or the leading up. Yeah. Like
Commode
that's
story
that's
is
what
great.
you need to know to get to know these characters and how they're going to turn on each other and how they're going to try to figure out who the undercover cop is.
And who you give a shit about.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Because you don't know who to trust as a
100%,
viewer.
No.
They're all criminals, right? So,
But in a
like,
way, Mr. White is like the main character. I
100%.
think in Reservoir Dogs, he's the main character, and he's the most, for some reason, sympathetic because he cares so much about Mr. Orange, like in a weird way.
Yeah.
It's so strange.
Well, I think
like
it's like
almost like a love. Like he's
yeah.
kind of in love with him
if
as a
you've watched
friend.
it enough, it's kind of this. It's either like the son that got away or his best friend that he never got to kind of have again.
right. He's filling a gap.
Right.
He's filling a gap,
Yeah.
and Mr. Ange is milking on that, and he found it, and he weaseled his way through that. You know what I mean?
And it's such an incredible cast too. You know, did we glaze over? Like Harvey Keitel as Mr. White,
Tim
You got
Roth,
Tim
Unbelievable.
Roth,
Steve Buscemi,
Yep.
Mike Madsen,
Yep.
fucking Penn. What's his name? Not Sean Penn.
Chris Penn.
Chris
Yeah.
Penn.
Yep.
Fucking Lawrence Tierney. What's his Brown? Who's Mr. Brown? Or Mr.
that was
Blue?
Tarantino.
Oh,
Mr.
no, the old
Eddie,
guy.
Eddie,
Yeah.
Eddie something.
Eddie Bunker.
yeah.
Eddie Bunker.
He was a real deal criminal.
He was a real
too.
deal criminal,
Yeah.
and I recently read a story that he was the blessing that gave us Danny Trejo because they served time
That's
together.
Right.
100%.
And-
He got Danny Trejo his first.
Danny was on
consultant
set consulting and doing like
Wow.
tattoos and stuff.
gig.
And they were like,
Jailhouse
that guy
tattoo
looks,
consultant.
Wow.
man, busting him up.
Yeah, he also wrote a great book that
I
got
heard.
turned. He wrote a few. Really
He's directed
good
a
books.
movie as well.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. He was a writer. Like he used to write
owns
books in
some
prison,
restaurants,
all about jail life and things
He's
like
turned
that.
entrepreneur, man.
I'd
Yeah.
like to look
Sharing
further
his
in because
wisdom.
I
love
knew
it.
when I
He's
first
really
watched
cool.
the movie because the description on the back of the box said, you know, former criminal, whatever. Like they listed all the
Really?
colors and all the people.
Yeah.
And I was a kid and I didn't really know what to do with that information. And now that I'm older, I was like, man, this guy's like a legit filmmaker elsewhere.
Absolutely.
Like previous to Reservoir Dogs, like he should
Right.
have been credited as such in Reservoir Dogs because the movie he directed was prior to Reservoir Dogs.
Uh-huh.
I'll have to look up what it was, but
He was a phenomenal writer too.
Yeah.
And one of his books got turned into a really good movie called Straight Time with Dustin Hoffman. I don't know if you guys have
that
ever
was
seen
a
that.
great movie, yeah.
Great movie. And that's
it
about
Ed
a guy
Bunker?
who
You're
gets
talking about Ed Bunker?
Eddie Bunker
Eddie
wrote
Bunker,
the book.
Yeah.
And it's literally about a guy who just gets out of prison and him trying to
make good.
do the straight life, and
Yeah.
he just cannot. It's a great movie. Kind
Yeah,
of
no,
underrated.
I gotta credit my dad for that. Like, we were always watching, like, any kind of, like, break out of jail or, you know, like, any kind of, like, criminal,
Cool Hand Luke
Yeah,
stuff.
those good,
criminal
like,
justice movies.
crime
or,
70s.
Or any kind of, like war movie or, you know what I mean? Like, Cool Hand Luke for sure. Yeah.
That's awesome.
All those. Oh, brother, we're out now. You know, all that stuff.
Yeah, that's a great one.
All right, Joe, what's your first recommendation for the night?
My first recommendation. Well, I got a list of a few here. So the real question is, do I start recent or do I start old school? Like, what era do I go? And I think I'm gonna go classic in the 80s. I'm gonna start with The Breakfast Club.
Yep.
Because it's amazing. If you haven't seen it, half the Brat Pack's in it. It's good stuff. Yeah. 5 high school students from different walks of life endure Saturday detention under a power-hungry principal. I mean, Paul Gleason, Judd Nelson, Molly Ringwald, Ali Sheedy, Anthony Michael Hall, Emilio Estevez.
The who's who of the 80s.
Yep.
Man.
So John Hughes.
And they cover the high school being from pretty much every angle that existed then, at least.
Yeah, it's about
it's so relatable for anyone,
so
that
good,
movie.
yeah.
A group of delinquents.
Don't look for it, it's not real.
Who, unfortunately, many unfortunate delinquents have had to have detention, but these sons of bitches had to have it on a fucking Saturday.
Yeah.
What the fuck is that about?
Yeah, that is insane.
That always threw me off about that they had to go in and that principal, who obviously had no other life and was just going to host an all-day detention on a Saturday.
Well, it came out in 1985, so maybe it was a commentary on the book 1984. Just took a little too long in post.
Yeah, right.
No, I love Breakfast Club. I think it's
a great movie.
A lot like Reservoir Dogs. It is very much heavy on the dialogue, and the exposition is all moved through discussion. You learn about each of the individual characters as they learn about each other, because they all come from different, they're super stereotypical tropes with an 80s flair to it, but we still see that separation amongst
they
children.
All come from a different background.
Exactly.
None of them are friends. They all know each other.
They know of each other, but they
other.
don't know each other. And
not at all.
This predicament.
It shows that they don't even know themselves as they get to know each other.
And that's why I love that movie, because it is super self-explorative. And
it's 2 months I got you.
Mess
with the bull.
Get the horns. Get the horns.
So yeah, great suggestion. Who that was that not written by John Hughes? Because it has.
Oh, it definitely was. John Hughes.
But not directed.
It's a John Hughes movie.
Yeah?
John Hughes.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
And it is funny. It has a lot of funny parts in it, but it's probably the least funny out of all his movies. Like, it's very emotional.
I think it was his
very
mature
sad.
effort.
Yeah.
It was more mature than
it's
16
very
Candles.
dramatic.
It has its funny and humorous moments, but in the way of life just happens to be humorous and funny, even when it's sad.
Yeah.
Because they don't focus on humor at all, but the actors brought humor out of the script because that's how they were experiencing those things in their life. And if you watch any of the interviews with them, behind the scenes stuff with them, there's a lot of it that'll support that. That's where I got my opinion.
Yeah.
And honestly, this is something I just found out yesterday. So Andrew McCarthy. Everybody remember Andrew McCarthy, Weekend at Bernie's?
Yeah, Weekend at Bernie's. St. Elmo's Fire is
St. Elmo's Fire. Yeah. He's part of the Brat Pack as well.
Yeah.
One of the few that aren't in this.
Yeah, that's true.
So he's making a movie. Documentary called The Brat Pack.
I did see that.
Oh.
I did see that.
He's like,
he's getting them back. Anyone who's available.
It seems cool.
Chit-chatting.
That's
cool.
cool.
A lot of people, like every single one of them have said yes. It seems, I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, that is cool.
It's the right
to
time
hear
for
that story. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a right time
I'd like
for
to
that.
see Judd Nelson again.
To hear what's wrong.
It's so funny. Judd Nelson was a joke last week.
Yeah, that's Sorry, Judd. And Jude.
And
Uber, for that matter.
I was a big fan of Ali Sheedy. When she was younger, I thought she was
Short
gorgeous.
Circuit.
But she is, but she's such a phenomenal. Short Circuit's where I fell in love with her. And if you go back and watch that, even though that's like a campy 80s comedy, she's still super fucking good at. Like, she was better in that than Steve Guttenberg. Gutenberg didn't look like he was taking it seriously at all, and Adi Sheedy took her role super serious. And I would have loved to have seen. I don't know what she's doing, so in my own ignorance, I don't know what she has been up to since the 80s and 90s.
She's done a bit. She comes and goes, but she's selective, and she does an amazing job still. She's still a beautiful and talented woman. Yeah.
All right, well, thanks. So, I came across Breakfast Club in my research, but I had a feeling that you might be the one to mention it. I wouldn't be the one to mention it because it's not one that I often think of to recommend, but I really love watching it when it's on. Breakfast Club.
Me too.
Yeah, it's good.
So relatable.
I think it's one of those things, like you were saying, where like when you think about Breakfast Club, I might associate some of the more bummer moments than I do the comedy moments.
Totally, but
forgetting
those are
it is
the
fun.
heavy moments are the weight of that movie.
That's the reason for the movie.
Absolutely.
Like I think that's we have to be trapped with that.
That's high school. That's a tough period of time,
man.
That shit sucks.
To be able to learn that two people who have ultimately different
foundation of you as an adult.
People who have different conflicts in their own life.
College excels that, but it started there, you know.
Yeah.
Middle
Absolutely.
school was nothing, you know what I mean?
People with different conflicts in their own life found a way to still relate to each other in that. And I think, remembering back to school, we're all in our own little worlds. And I think, that's one of the things, like I noticed as an adult, some of the people that I didn't care for, or as you grew, I think became more accepting of people or understanding of upset.
Showed them as much in the day as any of their colleagues in school would see until like the first freshman orientation at college, where who you were, where you were doesn't matter. You're here now. They got that early.
That Monday going back to school.
Your cliques don't matter. We're all people,
and that we all have problems.
See the person.
The thing is that every single one of them has problems.
Almost,
not like you think, okay, issue. The rich popular girl, she doesn't have any problems. No, she's just as much a mess as everyone else. In the room.
My parents don't see me. They buy me shit for each other.
Yeah.
And they're seeing each other in this.
And I think that's what makes the movie
athlete doesn't want to be a jock because dad forces it up his throat to the point where he acts it out.
That he feels like he has to be an abuser.
Eggs him on.
It's nuts.
That
very powerful.
Very powerful,
great
emotional
movie.
stuff.
Yeah, it's awesome.
You guys have mentioned some real demonstrative titles. These are all ones that really hit the reason that chamber pieces are evocative. And as such, I think that leads my choice to be, I'm going to go a little bit older than you guys, but I think this is another one that really nails the importance of the smallness of a location, and that's 1957's 12 Angry Men.
Yes, I knew you.
That was my second one.
Hell yeah.
I had to do 12 Angry Men. And this is why I recommend 12 Angry Men, because this isn't the first time that our listeners have been recommended 12 Angry Men, but I'm willing to bet that a percentage less than 50 has actually taken the time to watch it. I watched it recently in the last couple of years as a revisit, as part of our research for Nightcap. As a fan, a growing fan of Sidney Lumet, I had read his book a couple times now, Making Movies, and in it he had, and after listening to it last year sometime, recalling the conversation he had about his use of lenses and how he chose his lens choices for that movie, and I wanted to watch it again to see it in action, and but that brought me to watching the movie, and I'll tell you what, for a movie literally taking place in one or two rooms, being the room they're locked in, the jurors are locked in this room, they have to make a decision on the case that they had seen, and then they go over it and over and over it. So that's that room. It's hot as fuck. It's raining out, and it's miserable. And it's just about 12 men discussing facts that they have and the prejudices that they have, the folly of memory, the folly of being human, the folly of being judgmental. There's just so much
revealing
exploration.
What lies beneath the facade they all brought to the table. Right.
Because they all, here's the thing, there's a baseball game going, they all want to fucking leave, like it's Friday afternoon, there's so much at play, and yet at the same time a person's life is at stake, and there's one man in the room who takes that fucking seriously, and that's what projects the movie to, its hour and a half length. So
I obviously know why you chose this and why you had, but Cody, why did you have it on your list?
Because it really is the perfect single location movie. I mean, it's Well, first of all, it's based on a play, and the play is incredible. And then the movie, it was adapted into a movie, but there's nothing different about it. It's still a play.
Because it doesn't need to be.
It doesn't need to be. The material is so good. The actors are so good. And then you have Lumet, who's directing it, who I believe it was his first movie.
It's an early one. I'll look.
I think it's his first movie.
I think he did some TV stuff too.
He did do a lot of TV before that, like a lot of live TV, and he was an actor himself. So he knew what he was doing. Cinema. Yeah, he knew what he was doing with actors, which is why he was the perfect man to turn that play into a movie.
For sure. 100%.
Yeah.
It's probably the one Henry Fonda role that I'm most familiar with. And he's so phenomenal. All of the jurors just have numbers. Like
he's the catalyst too. Yeah. He's the reason for the whole movie.
Yeah, great movie.
He's the only guy who's like, let's take a second to look at this.
Yeah, and that's why I want to recommend this, because I feel like if you just like, oh, what's 12 Angry Men about? Oh, it's about 12 white dudes in a room arguing about a juror, the decision of a criminal, and that sounds terribly boring. But there's just so much that happens, and the way that Lumet moves around the room, you're never bored. You never feel like you're just in that room, because he finds a way to make each corner, each movement, everything so different, so you don't think about it. Like, it's not important. You get heavily involved in the discussion that these men are having, and you start to take your own side. And I don't sleep on it. It's black and white. It's from 1957, but it's highly recommended.
Highly recommended.
Classic in every word.
Real insight into why you should question even what your motives are for what you're thinking.
Sure.
Because it could be indoctrination. It could be because somebody told you and you haven't really learned it yourself.
Right.
Yep.
Well, I'm going to end up looking up what his first movie was, but that brings us to the end of our first round. So we are going to take a quick break and empty our bladders and so forth, and we will be right back.
Keep the flow.
All right, welcome back. In full disclosure, this is our second take. I started recording and somehow it fucked up. But we are back from break. Sidney Lumet. We said we left off I'd look up his first film, and Cody was right. Cody was right that 12 Angry Men was his first feature. So I think that is fucking
coming out gay strong, man. Yeah.
So we started our list this evening. Cody gave us Reservoir Dogs. Joseph gave us The Breakfast Club. And then I recommended 12 Angry Men to start our list tonight for chamber pieces. So that brings us to Cody. Cody, what is your next pick going to be this evening?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with 1982's The Thing, directed by John Carpenter.
Fucking love The Thing.
Yeah, 1982, great year. Year of my conception and vaginal release.
You're the thing.
You very well could be. Joe very well could be.
Could be.
And it takes,
I do fit in everywhere.
So Cody, tell us about The Thing.
Yeah, so The Thing is about a group of research scientists that are stuck. I don't want to say stuck, but they're on a research base in Antarctica when this thing, a being, comes from space, and they discover it in the icy depths of Antarctica. And what this thing is it's a shapeshifter, so it can turn into anything or anyone. So they have to figure out who the thing is. Similar to Reservoir Dogs, you know?
You're trying to find who the bad guy is?
Yeah, this all-male cast kind of trapped in this one location and trying to figure out who's the villain is. Yeah.
But like the motivation being, the motivation being obviously that this thing just wants to kill.
Yes.
So, different than, I guess, Reservoir Dogs in that way, where Reservoir Dogs, you don't think anyone there is going to kill you. You just want to know who fucked shit up. But in this case, now it's how do we find out like whose body has been absconded. Who are they? Who is who they say they are?
It's almost the biggest mystery of all to solve.
Because if you were it, you're not gonna and you know. But what I love about the Thing, what I think brings people back to the Thing, is the creature effects. I think the creature effects in that movie,
still hold up too. Without a doubt.
And I think if there's ever an example that we can use of, well, you know, CGI can be just as good and blah blah blah. You can take the example of the remake or prequel Thing from 2016, 15, 13, 12, 11, whatever the fuck it was. It's fine. But they started it with practical effects, and the studio got cold feet, and they went to all digital, and that's what's missing, that real life touch.
There is an undeniable, visceral, emotional reaction to when you see a physical person reacting to a physical something that your mind doesn't recognize as a creature that is physically there with that person. And I don't care how good computers get. We know, our brain knows, you know.
And I think what's remarkable,
we allow it for entertainment, but for scare factor, there's no substitution for practical effects.
No. And the Thing does a really good job, being that it's a chamber piece. What being a chamber piece, I think, gives to that movie is if there were other places for people to go, that the threat would be. It would be different because it could escape because, you know, they're isolated out there.
They're so isolated.
Everyone's trapped there, so everyone is immediately in danger, and there's very little that can be done.
You go outside, your face freezes.
Correct.
They're at the end of the world.
Yeah, you're literally trapped in a place of death.
I think obviously I love this movie, but I think my favorite rendition of it outside of it itself is Kate Beckinsale Whiteout.
I've never seen that.
Yeah, me neither. But I love Kate Beckinsale. I'm familiar with the movie, but I've not seen it.
It's basically The Thing with Kate Beckinsale.
Interesting. With practicals?
It's very shadows and stuff, but it wasn't CG. No, it wasn't CG. There was I don't know. Yeah, it was Kate Beckinsale.
It's not The Thing, though.
No,
it's not The Thing.
It's not
it's
The
no
Thing.
The Thing.
But there's so many movies that have been made with this.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
This plot implementation where you're stranded in a place, especially Antarctica, and there's, you know, fucking even Alien versus Predator.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the Requiem in the school.
And then the clue aspect of it. You know?
Yes.
We got to do some investigating. We got to figure some stuff out.
That I thought was brilliant. Like that's what I think is fast because it's not just a horror movie. It gets smart in a way that other horror movies don't. Different because, you know, the 80s was big in the slashers, and so this was a way, at least at the time, for John Carpenter to be, especially John Carpenter, the guy who brought us Michael Myers, right? So he's familiar with slashers, to take a whole different intellectual approach to how we can be frightened.
Right, and The Thing was the first one to take it there. Yeah, but there have been plenty in Sunset, and Whiteout would be my number 2 for that.
Right,
interesting.
That kind of I mean that gets back to like the point that it is entertaining. Because you're guessing the whole movie, you want to find out what's going on, and then B, it's a scary movie. It's terrifying. The special effects are terrifying. Like the kills are terrifying.
Yeah, the reality of what you're going through to, like, I'll still look like me and act a little like me.
Yeah, right.
Who of us is?
Yeah,
and it's got some of the most iconic, specific gags. You know, the chest pump scene, defibrillator scene.
Yeah. Defibrillator scene.
Oh my God. The spider head.
That spider head is unreal.
I don't want to spoil too much, but like those are the names that people, you'll know it when you see it.
For 1982, mind-blowing effects.
Absolutely.
Like, game-changing. Yeah.
And the guy who did the effects, I forget his name. I think it's Rob Bottin.
Yes, correct.
It is, right?
Yep.
100%.
He was, I think, 22 or 23.
What?
Yes. In his early 20s when he did the effects to those movies.
You know, you see the old footage and they were all like hairy as bears. They all looked fucking 40. So
it's a manly movie. It's like men, you know, Kurt Russell being cool. Kurt Russell's got a flamethrower. Like, come on.
So many cool
dope.
moments in there.
So cool.
Badass. Oh, fucking Wilford Brimley. Wilford Brimley being a badass in that.
Yep.
So,
They're all great, too.
I'm on board.
Amazing
The Thing.
recommendation.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Joseph.
All right, my number 2 coming in hot. All right. Well, what's funny is the Breakfast Club wasn't even on my numbered top 4. I just
you just said it.
Called an audible.
Wow.
I did.
You're mixing it up.
So I'm gonna bring it back to fresh a little bit for the Green Room.
Oh.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
not heard of this. This is a 2015 horror action movie.
I feel like you recommended this one on our music draft too.
Oh, well, that's probably true because it's fucking amazing.
It's a good movie.
Oh, it is.
A punk rock band becomes trapped in a secluded venue after finding a scene of violence. For what they saw, the band themselves becomes targets of violence from a gang of white power skinheads who want to eliminate all evidence of the crime. And, like, the head of the fucking thing is Sir Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in a much different role than you're used to seeing him.
Yeah, and Ron Weasley in a refreshingly visceral role.
Yeah.
Very good stuff.
I enjoy Green Room. I think Green Room is the type of horror movie, like, I'm glad that it got the reception that it got because on the surface, because it doesn't have a big singular killer, it doesn't have, it's rooted in reality. Like
It is. It's very realistic.
This could actually happen to you, and there are these types of people,
Yep.
in existence, and using the momentum of a band, a independent band trying to struggle and trying to go on.
Driving your
Because if I
band.
remember, don't they end up at a venue that doesn't work out for them, and the promoter at that venue is like, well, you can go to this other place, and then they just end up at the wrong place at the wrong time.
So
and it's just visceral.
It's just them on the side of the road and stuff like that, or in the van, and then they end up at this one.
And for a good part of
venue.
the plot, they end up in one small. If you've ever been, this is why it's called the Green Room. If you've ever been in a venue, the Green Room is
Within the
glorious as it
first half.
sounds. Is it glorious as it sounds for being a guest of the Green Room of any Tonight Show or anything like that? It's not like that.
Welcome
Your
to the
local
Green Room.
your local
We're in the
venues
Green Room
are
right now.
they're closets. They're closets.
This
and
is a
it's just a
luxury
place.
green room
This is
right
a place out of the way, and so it's this very, very tight room that I think agoraphobia, claustrophobia can just really like set in when you know that the enemy is unknown, unseen, and there's no other way for you to get out. And the movie does a really good job at leveraging that.
Yeah, you're in the back of the house. They're like basically a redesigned storage closet, or
Yeah.
a lot of times.
Yeah.
Like the legendary place here in Detroit, Harpo's. If you've ever been in the green rooms there, they're literally just little tiny things up a ramp through a stair. Like it's literally a closet with a mini fridge in it and a couch in there,
And maybe a chair, yeah.
And it's kind of scary.
Agreed.
No, but this movie is amazing. It's just a band on the road, and it's how it starts. And yeah, they have their thing planned, and one cancels, and they're kind of out of money, and they need to play wherever, as Brad says.
Yeah, it's how you get gas money home or to the
wacky
next gig.
sound guys tells them, "Hey, maybe you can stop here." They're always taking on extra acts, and it winds up being a white supremacist
Like underground club.
That's right. I'm
like a motorcycle club,
But more than that, they
but
could
a
have
skinhead club.
survived that. What the catalyst to the whole movement is they end up seeing something they shouldn't have.
Right.
And then their witness being
and
seen.
not only seeing more than they should
they could have gotten
but
away had they just
speaking
been-
up about their beliefs in
Right.
that environment before they witnessed it. So there's already a distaste.
Yeah.
So they're already in the spotlight of this very tight knit crew, and some shit goes down, and boy does it go down.
and then they get
does.
overpowered.
Boy, does it go down.
It does.
Because
The
these are
violence
some
is excellent
tough- This
in it.
is a tough fucking punk band,
Yeah.
bro.
The violence is incredible.
Yep.
And it's shot so very well because I feel like, you can emulate, fighting. You can watch fighting, watch Jason Bourne, watch The Matrix, watch John Wick. But if you're trying to make a horror movie and you try and employ those fight stylistics shooting, you're in for trouble. And they found a way in Green Room to shoot something completely different to give that heightened sense of the violence. It was just
it was amazingly done.
Engrossing.
It was acted so well, yes. And like the first time they actually kill somebody to save their lives, then the body has to stay in the room with them because they're locked in. And the way they react to that and how that like brings out different things in each of the characters, like which one's the panicky, which one's the find the solution, which one's the macho or hero, even though they're, it's just, it's great. It's well done from every angle. I like the lighting. They're very creative with that as well, with how limited they were with it. They had a lot of fun with it. Especially like during the concert stuff, it was fun.
Yeah, the look of it is cool too. The color is great in it. Yeah.
It really showcases how if you appropriate your budget, whatever it is, properly, you don't really have to
by leveraging
have a lot of
the limited
location.
space.
Right.
Because other than the opening where we meet them and then they travel, and then I think there's a couple of different spots they go to, but otherwise we're just on that plot of land, and you're mostly in the green room or in the venue, and at the third act, there's some outside stuff, but overall you're in a very, very secluded area.
The third act, they finally get out of the place, and then they get and overpower the people. I don't want to know spoilers.
Yeah.
Right.
But there's one bar before, and then a location after, like to defeat the big boss man, kind of like video game style, right? But the majority, the whole second act and the majority of the first act is in this.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I mean, it absolutely qualifies.
And even
there's no
capping
question.
off
That's
the
so
start
cool.
of the third act. So
Yeah.
for sure, it's definitely a chamber piece. Like it's very, like barely two other locations.
Right.
So 2016's Green Room. Put too many twos here. For my next pick, I'm gonna ride the theme. We got some horror movies going on here, so I think I'm gonna add my little slice of heaven to that, and I'm gonna recommend that everyone run out and see 2008's Pontypool. Pontypool. It's based on a book, which I have not read, but the movie is brilliant. So the premise of Pontypool is a zombie outbreak occurs, and we are in a small town radio station when this outbreak happens. And the entire movie takes place with just the people that are trapped inside of this small radio station. It's not like a large building. It's a small house type radio station, and how they handled this evening, this Night of the Living Dead, as it were. But it's fascinating because unlike Night of the Living Dead, you have no sense of what's going on outside. There's literally never anything outside of this radio station to give you any idea of what's happening. So, and they're the radio station, right? So it's like, you usually get your news from the radio station. So I think maybe there's presumably like they having on the news or whatever it may be. But the whole movie is the survival of the small cast in that radio station. And it's been a few years since I've seen it, so it's not fresh on my mind, but I remember being absolutely blown away with how entertaining and fascinating it was, especially 2008. So had we gotten the Walking Dead phenomenon yet? I think we were still looking for a reinvigoration of the zombie, right? So the idea of being able to
still
explore
part of the reinvigoration of the zombie. For sure.
So it was a whole different way to see, what we were getting. I think it was definitely post Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead, though. So, we got that whole new movement. But Pontypool from 2008. Have either of you seen it?
I haven't.
Not.
Yeah.
No.
Who directed it?
Pontypool.
I will take a look for you. It's a Canadian-based, I believe. I remember seeing it.
I'm saying this right. Pontypool, like Pontipool.
So
Pontypool.
close. So close. So it's Pontypool. Yep, a radio host interprets the possible outbreak of a deadly virus which infects a small Ontario town which he is stationed in.
Is it like Monty
Bruce McDonald.
Python-esque?
No.
Because Ponty
No.
Pool. You know, I'm sorry.
right.
Like,
Well, so the
if we're
name
going to
does
put the
the
Y
name
in
come
there,
from?
I want some Monty
Who is
Python.
Ponty?
Pontypool Changes Everything is the name of the novel. I mean, it's a small town, so maybe Pontypool was the name of the town. I don't remember, but yeah, it's fascinating. And no, it's not at all anything like Monty Python. Nowhere.
Rubbish.
Yeah. So yeah, I
always go
recommend everyone run out now and find Pontypool.
Just me
I
a flesh
will
wound, so I
definitely-
shall not be infected by the zombie. Oh.
It always comes back to Terry Gilliam.
That's because life will find a way.
Yeah, it will.
So that
sounds
brings us
great.
that brings us to you, Cody.
Okay.
So far I'm the one who has the unknowns.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
I totally didn't think I was going to be the only one here.
This
to
was
talk
gonna
about.
be my last, but
All right, time to go
someone
off the chain.
stole mine.
I did.
So have you ever heard of a movie called Tape?
I have heard of it. I've never seen of it. So I'm
Wow.
excited for you to tell me about it.
Very good. Okay, so Tape is from 2001. It's a Richard Linklater.
Yeah,
Okay.
it came up on my
Actually.
search, but I was not aware of it, so I'm excited. Yeah.
Really good. So Tape is a 3-character ensemble piece set within the confines of a motel room in Lansing, Michigan.
Yay.
After 10 years apart, 3 desperate people come together to play out the unreserved drama of their final days in high school. So it's about like one guy, the main character he's a filmmaker, he's a documentary filmmaker, and he's got a movie showing at the Lansing Film Festival. And he invites his best friend from back home to come see the movie, and they're meeting up at a motel room.
Nice.
The best friend tries to get one of their old girlfriends to come because he has some unresolved issues from back in high school that he wants to talk about. It is it's really good. It's based on a play. It's only 3 people in a motel room.
Yeah, and
You never leave the motel room. And the way Linklater did it was he shot it with really cheap mini DV cameras. So
Yeah.
it has this like very shot on video feel to it, which
Yeah.
is perfect for the
Gritty,
style of
yeah.
it. Yeah. And it's just like
Taxi
the
cab
editing is like
professionals.
super fast. So he puts the camera all over this room. He covers the crap out of
Hell
it.
yeah.
But it's good. The drama's great. The acting's great. Ethan Hawke, Uma Thurman, and
Robert Sean Leonard. who
Robert
I
Sean
fucking
Leonard.
love.
Yes.
I didn't know that Ethan Hawke and Robert Sean Leonard did anything else together.
Yeah.
Because I love the two of them in Dead Poets
Oh,
Society.
that's right. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're
How have I
great
not
together.
seen
You
it?
buy them
You know
totally
what?
as best friends.
Yeah, I bet.
I probably saw this back in my like film days. You know what I mean? Like way back when I was like eating a bunch of acid and mushrooms and shit.
When you were cultured.
Yeah, I was culturing myself.
Lost your culture.
I was culturing myself with all sorts of cultures, even mushroom spores. Yeah, that's a good word. It's a good way to put it. David. I like that.
No, I
gonna
very
use
much
that
would look
from
forward
now
to
on.
watching Tape.
Yeah, you'd
especially
like
with that cast. Uma Thurman, a young Uma Thurman, young Ethan Hawke, and
Yep.
Robert. It's just
It's cool. I think they were married at the time too, so
Yeah.
it's kind of cool. It's like
her and Ethan.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
2001. That's about the
Sounds
time.
brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thoroughly enjoyed
It's
that.
very good. It's a sleeper hit too. Like it's very underrated. Not a lot.
Richard
of people know about
Linklater
it.
is a blind spot for me. I've not seen a lot of his work, and another one of his series came up. And I've heard of the series before. I didn't realize they were chamber pieces, so I'm not sure what happens because I thought there was more to the movies. But he did the Before series.
That's right.
Also,
In a way, similar.
so have you seen all 3 of them?
I've seen all 3 of them. Yeah.
Would you call them? I hope I wasn't.
I wouldn't say that because they do change.
That's what I thought.
Locations, I'd say they're walking the whole.
Okay.
In every
okay.
movie, they're walking and talking. So
Okay.
there is location changes a
Yeah.
bit, but it's a single location movie in the way that it's similar to a play.
I feel
Yeah,
like
it's very
on the
playish.
street is a location. Like if they're on the street,
Right.
that's
Fair.
Doesn't matter what street they're on the street. right?
But then they go into
that's the location. That's one location.
But then they go into coffee shops.
That's what I'm saying. You stop it. There's all that's literally
they're in
not,
like an area technically. But
wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about this tonight. Tape. No, I'm happy to have this on the list because this
This one is definitely a one.
Okay. Yeah. Which was the one I missed?
Tape.
I got tape.
Oh,
Before movies, before sunset, before
sunrise, and before midnight.
I think so.
I want to say it's before midnight.
Yeah.
That's the title of the whole movie?
No, that's those
three
are three
movies. That's three movies.
That's the before trilogy.
Yeah,
and they
Ethan
were
Hawke
each shot
and,
like 10 years apart from each other because Linklater
Tape.
does.
Is that what we're saying?
Tape is his movie recommendation.
I got that. What is... I pulled my list up, and you guys are...
The before movies are a series of Richard Linklater movies. Yeah, that are similar. It's just two people talking. They fall in love.
And then they leave each other, and then they come back 10 years later. And
30 seconds in my phone, and you guys...
That's what happens, man.
I love this show.
It's great.
So, Joe, why don't you get us back on track, and let's talk about your next recommendation.
NC-17, 2004 thriller, Mysterious Skin. One youth, Brady Cobert, becomes obsessed with UFOs, while another, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, becomes a gay hustler in the years that follow a childhood trauma. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Brady Cobert, Michelle Thatchenberg, Chase Ellison. Great movie.
Never even heard of this.
Shabam!
Yeah.
Neither have I. And I've never seen it, obviously.
It'd have been weird if you had seen it.
Had heard of it, had not heard of it, but seen it.
Oh, I love Michelle Trachtenberg. Interesting. So where does it take place? I'm just trying to, because you stopped talking and we don't know it, so I'm just trying to get something out of it.
Sorry,
You've seen the fucking thing.
It's been a long time since I've seen it. It's a great movie.
And what exactly is the one location?
That's what where's the... Yeah. Because it sounds like an interesting story, but
It does, but I don't see it as being...
Prostitute story is about a disturbing homosexual encounter with a pedophile baseball coach, and the other teen story revolves around an amnesia.
It's the relationship between the two boys. It's basically like on a stoop in this home, right? Like they're both living in there. They got a car, right?
Is this one of them stretches?
Yeah, it's a stretch. I haven't seen it in so long, and you can't really find it anywhere.
Yeah, because it didn't come up on any of my lists, so I'm curious what made this film pop in your head other than just trying to...
In the final scene, both men go back to the building where all of the flashbacks are. So they're going through, like, friendship life, right? Like, they do some... like walking down the street and driving the car.
So, I mean...
But everything they talk about goes back to this...
to that one location.
Building, and then they
so
go
it's not
back
one
there.
location one time. It's one location and
Throughout
multiple
time.
times.
Yeah.
Okay.
Both men go back to the
That's
building
different.
where they were abused and remember what happened. Tears fall down their cheeks. Neil holds Brian tightly. So,
Probably
you said no
definite-
spoilers, Brian.
Probably definitely a super loose translation of
it's not
chamber
It's
piece, because
really
I'm watching
not.
this trailer and
So
it definitely
much-
isn't a chamber piece.
Well, so much of it is in this building.
Just not enough for the trailer.
You don't sell a chamber piece on being in.
I'm just saying they found a lot of locations for the trailer.
Right, yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
A lot of chambers.
I've not seen the trailer. Just the
2004
movie.
though, that's
I wanna
crazy
see it,
because it's got a hell of a cast. I don't know who Brady Corbet is, but Elizabeth Shue's amazing. Joseph
Love some
Gordon-Levitt, and you
JGL.
mentioned Trachtenberg. I love Trachtenberg. Chris Mulkey. I worked with Chris Mulkey.
I'm gonna high five that JGL.
Chris Mulkey's the shit.
JGL.
I'm gonna stop arguing because it's a Chris Mulkey film. Chris Mulkey's the shit.
Dude, it's fucking awesome.
He's amazing.
Yeah. All right.
That sounds great.
I'm just trying to talk.
Bradford.
Yeah, I'm
you're
just gonna move
number
on.
3.
I'm gonna move on.
Yeah.
So then, these are the
Tim
weird
in
ones.
a corner. He's the one with the fucking laptop.
You all have.
Can't type nothing.
You have. I've typed in all
Sneaking
kinds of
on
things.
the phone.
So
Half the time he's telling me to shut up.
okay, here's the thing. I'm gonna go with because I like to keep like okay, let's keep the mood going. We got Tape, we got Mysterious Skin, so I'm gonna go with another one that is super small cast and
Give me some more.
weird-ish in its content. And that's going to be, I don't remember what year it was recently, but the Netflix released film Gerald's Game, based on Stephen King book. It's got, what's her name? Carla Gugino, who I love. I forget who plays her husband, but it's basically the plot is the two of them are, I believe they're away. They're staying in an unfamiliar house, and they are setting up to have themselves some marital relations. And they want to get weird with it, so he handcuffs her to the bed, and then he has a heart attack. And the remainder of the movie is her chained to this bed and trying to get out. And while she's there, she's forced to deal with some reflections of her past, and you start to learn of what her past is. And it's riveting in a way that I didn't think it was going to be, because it's a woman chained to a bed. But Stephen King, it's not horror in the sense of like weird, crazy monsters.
It's more suspense.
It's horror in the sense of how terrible life is. And, you know, he likes to do terrible things to children, and that is relevant to her story.
Yes.
And it's a tenuous watch. Like, it gives you anxiety. It fills
more
you
anxiety driven. Exactly.
It fills you with all kinds of emotions that movie normally doesn't.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's why I recommend it, because it is a chamber piece.
Yeah.
But it uses that chamber in a way that none of these other films that we've talked about tonight have used.
Okay, I can see that.
So
That is a good example of that. I saw it when it came out. I don't remember loving it because
it's not enjoyable to watch.
I don't know. I feel like it worked better as a book. I never read the book, but I feel like that kind of
The concept, because you
The
can be more
concept works better. Yeah.
yeah, I think it does, because you have to be more in the character's head.
It was,
as opposed to
it was no
outside.
misery. Okay, so there's not a
Right.
movie
I was
that's
gonna
been
mention
on
that was one of my
the
honorable
list.
mentions.
Right, mine too. It is
Yeah.
an honorable mention. So I'm glad I'm not taking it off somebody's list. But like, if you were gonna use that line, you should have said misery. Just,
what year was this?
King.
2017. Mike Flanagan.
Yes, right. That is Mike Flanagan. He's good at adapting Stephen King.
He is.
He's very good
He
at
is.
but you picked the wrong adaptation.
Cujo
In my
2, Stephen King, one location.
Cujo 2.
That's another.
Oh my God.
Hopefully no one had that.
Oh, well, it's your turn, so you take
Oh, it
whatever
is.
you want.
I'm
Yeah.
not going to say
take it away.
Cujo. I'm not going to say Cujo.
So this is going to be your last recommendation.
All right, cool. And this was
choose
kind
wisely.
of, I just kind of came up with this one. I just thought of it. This is a movie I saw recently, actually. Another sleeper, in my opinion. I had never heard of it before. Mute Witness from 1995. Have you guys ever seen it?
I've heard of it. I
I've
have
heard
not
of it,
seen it.
yeah.
It's a
I
fantastic.
think I have seen it. My good friend Dan Rintz, he has shown it to me. It's been a while.
Okay.
It's been a while.
Wow, it's really good. So, Mute Witness is about a makeup artist for movies. She's working on a movie. She's a mute. She's working on a movie in Russia. And one night after hours, she's in the studio and she sees a couple of crew guys. I believe they are grips, who are filming their own snuff movie, and they kill a girl.
Yeah.
And she witnesses this, and they know it, and then they lock the studio so she can't get out,
Right.
and then the whole movie takes place in the studio. And it's her trying to escape, trying to get away from these guys, these crazy Russian dudes. And it's so suspenseful, and it's so cool that it's about filmmaking, and that it's in a studio.
And it's borderline ridiculous, but it's done in a way that you're like on the edge of your seat. You're
Absolutely.
you're so enthralled
Every
with
second.
Like how are they doing that? How is this? But they're pulling it off.
They are.
Because you're allowing for it because it's so well done.
Yeah. And it's only, like you said, it's only in the filmmaking that it really does that. Like the suspense is all in the camera work. It's all in the filmmaking, all in the editing.
I'm glad he recommended this one because I'm looking at the cover for it, and it's one that is on my to watch list on Shudder.
Cool.
And I haven't pulled the trigger. So
Oh, you gotta watch it. It is so entertaining and so suspenseful.
Brad and I are huge watch party people, so like we get together and just like put shit on.
There you go. Maybe it'll be the next one.
Yeah.
Well, we still have a dice to roll here soon, so it very well could be our next
could
one.
be.
But I definitely will be if it's not one that I'm going to watch here soon.
Yeah, we'll do it in one of our watch parties rather than watching it for the show. You know,
Joseph.
any excuse to watch a new movie.
There you go.
Yes, sir. Well, motherfuck. Because I got so many here that we haven't touched on. So I know we did Breakfast Club, Reservoir Dogs. This is the last one.
This is your last one.
This better be a good one. It's the last of the last, not just your last one.
So many good.
I got one more.
Oh my goodness, yeah. And
I want to throw out some honorable mentions.
Oh,
too.
we will.
Okay.
Oh, we're definitely doing honorable mentions. Right? You're gonna cover what I want to cover. Such good. There's so many good movies here.
I got a lot here, so I'm not even at risk of losing another one.
Okay, I'm gonna have to go with one of the movies that really made me want to get into filmmaking. I mean, all these really do that, but ultimately, this is Cube.
I thought you might bring that one up.
Cube.
Okay.
Very, very less. And I was on the border with another one, and I'll bring that up after Brad's, because I want to touch on that one a little bit. But Cube, sci-fi movie, back when it was the science fiction channel. Even before it was sci-fi, let alone sticky.
Was this made for TV? Oh, look, you talk.
I believe it was. I know that's where I discovered it.
Okay.
I think it was at least funded by that company if it had any release outside of it. I know there's also been sequels to it. But it was on a singular soundstage. They built a room with light panels, and they built a couple extra panels so that when they opened little square doors in the middle of the wall, you could see another room outside of it of a different color. And this movie is just it's amazing. It's amazing. If you haven't seen it,
it's super weird.
I've never seen it.
Yeah,
I gotta get to the.
It's one
page
where
to read the. Here it is. Okay, without remembering how they got there, several strangers awaken in a prison of cubic cells. Some of them booby trapped. There's one-time cop Quentin, scientist Holloway, young math genius Levin, master of escapes Rains, autistic savant Kazvan, and architect Worth, who might have more information on the maze than he lets on. The prisoners use their combined skills to try to see if they can escape. Right, and so actors would be like, there's really nobody known. Maurice Dean Wint, Nikki, I can't even pronounce this.
Yeah, it's got like a Saw vibe to it, right? You wake up, you don't know what's going on, and you gotta
Wayne
figure
Robinson.
this
It sounds
shit
like
out.
that.
But it gets wilder and wilder the more that they move through this cubic labyrinth.
Yeah, so it's this giant labyrinth, and as the movie goes on, it's explained that it's like basically a corporate cog for experimentation of the human condition. And they just, I don't know.
Like the Stanford prison experiment.
Watch your credit card debt, people, because they're gonna pick you up, pull you up, and just shove you in this and study you.
Yeah, I would say the closest movie recently that is anywhere similar to it would be possibly like Escape Room. With the girl from Daredevil,
right? Or kind of like the Belko experiment,
but it's different.
too. It's kind of like the Belko experiment.
On my list. Yeah.
That's a good one too.
I didn't even think about that one. I did not like that movie.
Oh,
yeah.
Shut up.
No, I've tried.
It's amazing, dude. It's so good.
Fun,
I liked it.
but
I liked it. I thought it could have been slightly better though as
Yeah.
well.
I'm just saying,
I mean,
it was sloppy.
The editing job was sloppy. The shooting was amazing. I didn't see anything bad with
The
it.
premise is great,
Yeah,
too.
the premise
Yeah,
is great.
there was just there
awesome.
were, it was riddled with plot holes. But that's my
doesn't
own
that
personal.
come down to the editing?
Not always.
Yeah,
Nah.
you can rewrite the story in the editing.
You
If
can.
there's
That
That's
is
putting
the
up-
final rewrite.
Yeah, exactly.
You overshoot
Editor-
because sometimes
Yeah,
there's
but editor
two
can't put in
storylines and you're
stuff
not
that's
sure
not
which one
there.
you want to follow.
There was a lot. It's been a minute since I've seen it. I'm just saying, I personally didn't care for Balcom.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with Joseph.
sounds great.
Cube is a lot of fun.
I definitely got to watch it.
It's so much fun.
Wow.
So now I'm tasked with the last one. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 movies here that I threw
I'm
down.
telling you, so many, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
take your time.
So-
I'm going to keep talking Cube for just a second. While you
Okay, yeah.
because
There's more than I thought
there's
there'd
so
be.
much science in Cube, right? Like
Yeah.
like it comes down to like they have to like divide down to prime numbers. Like when they open this door, there's like a barcode, and so there's science and there's all these things like different prime numbers and different equations equal like different kinds of booby traps they find out, and like which room is booby trapped, isn't booby trapped, and it really comes down to like all of their skills are necessary. And if they fight and one of them dies, now they're all more prone to death because they don't have an element of a thought process that they need for the ultimate equation.
Right.
And the only person, and no, I would spoil it.
Yeah. So I've come to a decision.
always one
I'm looking
survivor,
at this, and out of the however many I said I mentioned, more than 7, more than 12. Looking at the list that we have, we've got a lot of bummers, right? In the sense that they're not fun, and so maybe not all of our listeners would be like quick to go run in and watch some of these. So in an effort to, I guess, give something
guess
a
I
little
was a
more,
dark kid,
a little
'cause the
more
Breakfast Club
palatable.
always
Well,
got
it's
me
a-
No, we've got. No,
It's
no,
a bummer being trapped in one location.
It is a bummer, and we've got the Breakfast Club on there. But, we started getting real serious. I'm not saying that these are bad. I'm just saying I'm looking at, like, how can I change the tone of this list? Because a lot of these ones that I have here are also bummers, and I want to talk about them. But I'm going to lighten it up. So I'm going to go with 1985's Clue.
I love Clue, dude.
Clue's
Yeah,
awesome.
Tim Curry. Oh my goodness, the whole cast is just amazing.
Yeah, Christopher Lloyd, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Christopher Lloyd, Susan Sarandon.
Yeah.
I'll pull it up. It was a whole. What's
amazing,
brilliant about
yeah.
it is you'll never be able to see it today the way that they saw it, because back when they released it, communication was low and we didn't have the spread of information like we have now. So they were able to release 3 different versions of the film. But now when you watch it, you get all the cuts.
yeah.
And it's like it starts where it ends, and then it's like, but it could be, and then it goes back. So the fact that there was
this could happen.
the fact that there was a time where you
got
in your city
released
and me in my
different.
city
Yeah.
could watch the movie, then get together, and then we'd probably fight over the fact that the movie.
That's not how it ended.
That's not how it ended.
No, that
Cool.
scene didn't. Yeah.
Wow.
They did that. Yeah.
And so it's an ensemble piece. It takes place in. I mean, if
First
you're
of
familiar
its
with the
time
game
kind of
Clue, it's built
choose
off the
your
game
own
Clue.
ending release.
There's a murder that happens, and then people like the thing, like some of the others. You're trapped in here with your murderer. How do we figure it out? How do we find it? And it's zany. I guess this would be the one closest on the list to the Monty Python, but it's cheeky.
It's fun.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's got like we mentioned, a stellar cast of phenomenal talent.
And it is in one house.
Yeah.
Right? It's
And,
in several rooms, but it's
all there
one
in
location.
the one location, and it's it's the one that I had to top it off with to leave a little more pleasant taste in your mouth after.
That's a good one too.
It's slapsticky
Yeah.
when it needs to be, but serious when it needs to be. It's a good romp. It's fun.
And it sticks to the theme of basically almost every movie we've talked about.
Right, with less tension because
Yeah, right. A little lighter.
So I'm going to run down our list one more time here, and then I'm going to hand this 12-sided die here to Cody to roll it on the table and keep it on the table as is tradition, to select what movie we're going to watch next week. And then we're going to talk about our discards, and we'll go through and discuss a few of the movies that almost made the list. So, Cody,
Okay.
bequeath this over to you.
Do the honors. All right.
11.
Ooh.
Joe always has the recommended list. Not always,
is 11.
not always, but it is high probability that we end up getting one of Joe's, and they're always banger movies, so it's never a disappointment. This time it's going to be Cube. And for our viewers, it is available on Tubi, Roku, Pluto TV, Plex, and Freebie. You're welcome. So I highly recommend you check this out and check out some of these other ones. So, Cody, what got left off your list?
Ooh, let me check right
Bring
now.
it home.
Yep.
Okay,
So
what are you ready?
some honorable mentions.
Fastest gun in the West.
Obviously, Rear Window, Die Hard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Die Hard I came up with watching 12
While we were
Monkeys.
watching 12
I was
Monkeys.
like, Bruce Willis.
Yeah, you're like, wait a minute.
Wait,
This
that's
is-
in one building.
I'll allow it.
That's a building. That's
It's a
one
chamber
place.
piece. Yeah. It's a chamber piece.
Speaking.
The Hateful Eight is basically
It is as
Reservoir
well.
Dogs in the West,
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Wyoming,
pretty much.
in a blizzard.
And Kurt Russell breaking a $150,000 guitar.
There you go. More Kurt Russell too. Knife in the Water.
Not heard of that one.
Roman
Hey,
Polanski's
nice.
first film.
Yeah.
Great film.
Great film.
3 characters. They're all on a sailboat.
Totally qualifies.
All tension.
I just didn't
It
think
does.
of it. Yeah.
Yep, it does. Assault on Precinct 13.
That was one of the
obviously,
ones
John
I was going to
Carpenter.
mention. Yeah,
Yep.
see, but not obviously. I don't think Assault on Precinct 13. That's why I was going to be my last mention, but I was like, well, we got Carpenter on already.
Exactly.
But I think there's going to be a way for me to like highlight Assault on Precinct
I
13
feel
in
like
another
we're
topic.
making Assault on Precinct 13 adjacent film right now. Like I feel like this is like another neighborhood in like
Yeah, it is.
outside of it's just weird.
Yeah, Assault on
Yeah.
Precinct 13 is such a joy when I discovered it. I was like, holy shit, because it's
It's
pre-Halloween.
great. It is pre-Halloween. Yeah, he was really young when he made that.
One
too.
of his first scores, because he scores the shit, and it's like,
Yep.
bo-do-do-do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bo-do-do-do. Bo-do-do-do.
And it's
Nothing
cool.
like
it's
a
a
Carpenter
low-budget
score.
action movie.
Super low. And that's
Yeah,
what's
like-
fascinating about it is because when I watched it, I was like, holy shit, this is something that reasonably speaking could be shot on a low budget even today.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any more honorable mentions?
I do. Rope, obviously another
Yep,
Hitchcock.
Rope.
Is,
That was the quintessential.
Yeah,
It
so I
really
went
is,
with, I was
yeah.
torn between that and 12 Angry Men, and I was like, well,
12
How
Angry
do you
Men
do
is
it?
a better movie.
I think so.
It is.
It's a better
It is.
movie.
There's
but
different
it's-
things to
Rope
talk
is
about
cool,
with Rope.
but
because Rope is not only chamber piece, but it's also
oneer.
a oneer.
it is a wonder.
So that's
and it's
why
the
I
first
call
time
it
it
the
was ever
quintessential.
really attempted.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like he kind of got it. You know,
So it
there's
was
parts
convincing
in it-
enough for me
It
because
was, yeah.
the very first
Especially
time we
for the
watched
time.
it.
for the time, for sure.
We had
but you
watched
can
it.
tell every single cut. You can.
But there was no edits. They were
No.
hidden cuts.
They were, but you can
Pass
tell.
behind a chair, pass
Yeah,
behind a
like
wall.
people step in front of the camera.
Step in
like,
front of the
it's
camera.
Very obvious,
But they're still doing that today. That's what 1917 did.
That was the first time
right,
they
but
ever
in a
did that
much
shit.
Because they had After
better
Effects
way.
and can
Yeah.
cut around.
Yeah.
And
You know what?
He didn't
We
have
should do
that.
that.
No, he
again.
didn't, which is amazing.
You know what?
That's why he's the best.
That was kind of good, but next time, as she steps in front, the camera should be moving too, so it's a little more convincing. So, they figured it out. It was,
He did.
It was
He
the
did.
first time. You can't
And he
nag a
he
motherfucker
also
100 years later.
he
Get off this
needed to make those cuts because
They were running out of time.
shit. Quite
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah, like, that's
They
the-
talking media.
So the first time
Yeah,
I'm watching
this
that
is-
movie,
Right.
This is nitrate film.
It is.
first time
Like,
I'm watching that movie, I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it, and then I was like, wait a minute, how fucking far are we into this movie? And I clicked on it. It was like 20 minutes. I was like, holy shit, there hasn't been a cut yet. Tape is only
amazing.
11 minutes. A film reel is only
Right.
11 minutes. So I was like,
Tops, yeah.
there must have been at least, so from that moment forward, I was locked in.
Yep.
Like, when is that real change? When is that real change?
No, it's incredible. I mean,
look for
and
them
like
cigarette burns.
it's all about the blocking too in that movie. Like,
Oh, yeah.
it's a play.
It's a
Again,
play.
It's a play that he
And the only way
started
to
in
get
theaters.
scene
so,
from scene was
yeah.
to be able to find that way to get
all about the
11-minute
blocking. Yep.
takes and then
So a couple more. Demons.
take them all. Ooh, that's a good one.
That is
That's
a good
is that Fulci?
It's not
Demoni?
Fulci. It's Bava. I think it's
Oh, is that the
Mario
one with-
Bava's son.
Yeah, with Argento.
With Argento. Argento
Yes.
wrote it, I believe.
Yes.
But I think Bava directed it. It takes place in a movie theater. Even Demons 2 takes place in an apartment building.
I've been hesitant. I've been catching up on my
really good.
Fulci, my all my Italian stuff. I've been
Fulci.
getting a lot of my because Tubi's great for it.
Yeah, it is.
As is Shudder.
Yep.
So I've been filling in blanks there, and Demon is one that I've been meaning to watch, but haven't hit trigger yet.
It's really good.
Yeah,
it's
definitely
so
worth it.
crazy. Yeah, it's so good. And then Misery and Bug, I said too.
Very nice.
Bug is another play. There's some directors who are incredible at adapting plays, and one of them is William Friedkin. And he did a great job with Bug. It takes place in a motel room.
That was his last film, wasn't it?
I don't know if it was his last one. His last film was another adaptation of a play. It was a courtroom drama. He also, speaking of 12 Angry Men, did an incredible remake of 12 Angry Men for TV, which is actually a really good movie too. Great cast, good shooting. Friedkin is one of my all-time heroes. So, those are my honorable mentions.
All right.
Yeah.
All right,
Joe?
so for me, the one that I switched the cube for would be actually I think I switched Breakfast Club for it ultimately, but that would be Four Rooms.
Okay,
sure.
Yeah,
Coming back to Tarantino, the only good one is the Tarantino one.
The last
honestly.
one with Bruce Willis.
I gotta say,
agreed.
I enjoyed the whole thing.
Okay.
When I saw it when it came out as a child, like preteen basically, but I was into movies at the time, and it just I don't know, it made something seem feasible about it. Like it felt like a get together with your buddies and shoot something. Like,
Sure.
Right.
You got a story.
Right.
Like,
a little experimental
and
too.
I just loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it. Because what they did was so fun.
Yep. I agree.
Also, as we mentioned, the Belko experiment. But other ones that were on my list would be Buried. With Ryan Reynolds.
That's a good one.
Locked with
Tom
Hardy.
Yeah. The car.
127 Hours with
Franco.
James Franco, not James. No, not
James.
His, but what's his? Whatever.
David.
Not the other one.
Dave.
Not his brother. Sorry,
Little Franco.
I just forgot the word brother for a second. Give me a sec. And Chocolat.
Oh, okay.
Is that a one location movie? I've never seen that actually.
For the most part, it's one of them hard sells, but it's basically where the mom and the daughter live.
Huh.
So that I've never
This
seen it
little
either.
town square and a shop.
But that came up earlier today. Earlier in the episode, I was looking up the DP of 12 Monkeys, and he was also the DP of Chocolat.
No way. Chocolat.
You said that was your last one, Joe?
chocolate. It's called chocolate.
I mean,
we're all
I'm
pretending
kidding.
to be. I mean, you guys got to leave some for me, but if you got some other good ones, definitely fire them out. Unless you're on
the
Google
only
right
one,
now.
no, I'm not on Google. This is the list I made. The only one that I haven't mentioned would be Panic Room. That's on my list.
Okay.
God, Panic Room's
Yeah, so
awesome.
Panic Room was on mine. Assault on Precinct 13 was on mine. 10 Cloverfield Lane, I think, is one worth mentioning.
Yeah,
That's a good one.
it is
Newer one that I personally enjoyed because I think it turns the slasher genre on its head a little bit, and that's Bodies, Bodies, Bodies.
Okay,
An
that was
824
good.
from
I like
2022.
that, Pete Davidson.
Yeah,
I totally thought you were alluding to this choice before you made your last choice when you said something like Snoochie Boochies or something along those lines. But Clerks,
Clerks, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Rope was on my list. Hard Candy was one I was considering until we started getting way deep.
Wow, I didn't even think about that. Hard Candy's great.
Hard Candy is
so good.
It's
hard
great.
watch, but it's so
It is a
fucking
hard
good.
watch, but it's wild.
And then the last three that I have here, one is one on Shudder. I highly recommend. Joe and I just recently watched this one called Sequence Break. It's a gooey.
That was basically a chamber piece.
Yeah,
really
it was a very gooey.
really good.
It's not a
was
body horror, but
cerebral.
it's very cerebral. Yeah, very
It was
psychological.
freaky,
Yeah. about a video game kid. But look it up. It's on Shudder.
It was
it's amazing.
scary, but it wasn't
It's enjoyable. It's a ride. But my last two would be Suicide Kings with Christopher Walken.
Oh man, I love that movie so much.
Jay Moore.
Yes. And the movie that I really wanted to take some time and talk about, maybe we'll do a deep dive on in another title, but I had to, especially this one is so heavy that I was like, wow, I got to do Clue. But there's a movie from 2011.
Whose finger you just severed?
So there was this movie from 2011 called I Melt With You. And it has Thomas Jane, is it Rob Lowe? It's a phenomenal cast.
It sounds phenomenal. I love Thomas Jane.
I love Thomas Jane.
Bro.
Yeah.
So this movie is about friends who regularly get together at every summer for a week out and whatever, blah, 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 blah. And they're going through things in life, and they made a promise to each other sometime in the past about if they got to a certain point. I don't remember what the promise was. It's not said here, but something happens on that weekend that really puts them all to really start to question themselves, question each other. But it is such an emotional roller coaster of tragedy and sadness. And like, it's not a fun movie. It's one of those movies where I'm recommending it to you because it's art and it's fucking gorgeous, and the performances. So here I've got the cast here. It's Thomas Jane, Rob Lowe, Jeremy Piven, Christian McKay, Carla Gugino, and there's many others, but those are your main four: Thomas Jane, Rob Lowe, Jeremy Piven, and Christian McKay. And I tell you what, you have never seen a performance from any of these actors quite like the performance they give in I Melt With You.
Wow, that's great.
This sounds like why I bent the rules for Mysterious Skin, because it's not really bending the rules. You have to see this,
right? Well, so
movie.
No, in this one, they arrive at a house. They arrive at a house. And the movie takes place in the house from one period to the end period.
It
So
almost sounds like
the
The Big Chill, which now I'm thinking
regretting
is also...
it is.
The Big Chill, amazing.
It's a big category. It really is. I really thought
music driven.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
But so that brings us to you guys. What did we forget? What other big classics or suggestions that we didn't mention? That
I don't got any big classics, but if you haven't seen it, The Sunset Limited, 2011.
Oh yeah.
Samuel L. Jackson, Tommy
That
Lee
is cool.
Jones.
I'm sorry, Joe. I didn't know you had more. I was closing this out.
No, that was it. We're good.
So can I do the close now?
Yeah.
Okay. You cut me off. I was oh no, please give more. But if you, the listeners, have any other recommendations, send them in to us. You can email us at UFO studio.detroit@gmail.com. You can visit our website at ufpodcast.podbean.com. Visit us on Facebook. You can find us under Unorthodox Film Podcast. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, where you can like and subscribe and follow, get notifications for all of the new upcoming episodes. But we do want to hear from you. We do want to see your comments. We want to know what you think about the movies that we recommended. Have you watched any? But definitely, what did we forget? What else is out there that we could have talked about? So thank you to our guest, Cody. Cody, if you want to be found online, where would someone look for you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram. My Instagram is my name, Cody J. McAvey.
Cody McAvey.
Yep. And you can find the link to my website, which is my company, Urban Country Productions. And you can see some stuff I've shot and worked on and, keep it going.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on with us today. Joseph, how can people find you?
You can find me by following this podcast. You can find me on Instagram at chaotic_artisan or Joseph Sheldon Quick on IMDb and all the platforms, because it's my legal name. Don't fuck with me.
And you can find me at BFord Clark on Instagram. So thank you all very much. One last thing, I do want to remind everybody that we do have a merch store. You can visit the UFPod merch store through the link on our website, or if you want to type out the whole thing, it's the UFO-BAZAAR.printify.me/products. But you're probably better off just going to our Podbean.
We just call it the UFO Bazaar.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Thank you all so much, and we will see you next time.